Hey guys, Omerko here, web developer from Serbia. As I am self-taught web developer myself, I can openly tell you that one of the biggest challenges in this industry is getting clients, as clients will often ask you about your past project, your portfolio website, or even your portfolio projects. If you are front-end developer, you must know at least basics of JavaScript. So we will today focus just on that. We will create together today small JavaScript project to enhance your portfolio website. We will create together a calculator project with JavaScript. It will be run on 3 stages. First stage is a markup for that calculator. We will done it in HTML. The next part will be CSS to style the whole calculator. You can do it in your styles, or you could follow up with me. And the third part of the calculator will be just the logic, the main part of this video basically. So let's just jump to it. Okay, so as I said, this will be run in 3 different sections. We will first do the markup, and that's HTML. The second part will be the CSS, and the third part will be the logic of our calculator. So here I have my HTML code on the left side, and on the right side I will keep my local host run by pre-pros, so you could follow up live all the changes, right? I will change first of all my title here. Okay, so now we can start coding. First of all, the HTML will be done inside of one main container. There will be our viewer, the viewer that we will use to see the result of calculations, and the second part will be the table with the buttons that we will have inside of our calculator. So I will first put my comment here. Then I will create my section main container. Inside of this main container we will have those 2 parts. First part will be viewer, and the second part will be table. For viewer, I wish my viewer to be just the input field. It is the type of text, and the class can be viewer. This class will be used to select the viewer inside of CSS and also JavaScript. For the table, I will create a table. The table itself must have table rows, so I will create a table row here, and inside of table row td table data for every button that we will have. The buttons will be basically an input fields with type of button. I will also put the class here, button. That will be the class that we will select every individual input field, the button field basically. And there will be the value inside. The value will be, for example, plus. If I save the code, you can see on the right side that viewer that we will have and the plus button that we have for now. I will copy my td part and copy it 3 more times, and I will just change values here to minus, to star for multiple, and slash for dividing. I will copy my entire table row. I will paste it down here. Let me do the tabbing first. So here I will have the other values will be 1, 2, 3, and here will be the value of del for deleting, right? For this button here I will also add a class delete, as I will select this button differently. It will be used for a different function basically. And next part is 4, 5, 6 and AC for all clear. I will add a class of clear here, as it will be also used differently. And next part I'm missing 7, 8, 9 here, 7, 8, 9, and here will be equal sign, a class also. We also need to have a 0 and the dot, so I will put here 0 and here will be dot. For a 0 I will add a class of 0, we will use this button to style it differently. But yeah, that will be it basically for our markup. We have our viewer here and all the buttons that calculator must have basically. So from here we will move to CSS part. For CSS, as we have now our HTML done, I will create a styles.css file. Inside of my HTML I will add that styles here. So I will import my styles CSS part, and first of all I wish to work with base styling. I will select every element with the star sign, and for every element I will put the padding to 0, margin to 0. So now you can see the change. I will change, for example, font family. I will put, for example, Lucira Sans. Let me toggle this. Okay, so you could see everything on screen. The next part I will style a body. The entire body I will just put a background color for body. Let me use for this one, F48. Okay, so this will be a little bit dark calculator, right? We have that dark gray as a background. The next part that I want to do is you remember that we have this main container that is wrapping our entire content for calculator. That main container I wish to position center inside of screen basically. So I will put first my comment here, so we know on which part of the code we are working. I will grab my main container by class and I will put a width to it, for example 210 pixels, and I will position my main container absolute, so there are no changes now. Still, I will put the top position to 50%, so you can see it is moved from the top to 50%, and I will put my left position also to a 50%. So you can see that our container is still not in center, but this corner of our container, of our viewer here, is in center of a page. So we need to move this backwards a little bit. So I will use a transform property inside of CSS. I will translate x by minus 50%, and I will also translate epsilon also by 50%, minus 50%. So yes, our calculator is in center right now. So after that I will move to style my viewer. I will select my viewer here by a class, and first of all I will put the font size for a viewer 18 pixel. I will give some padding on it, 5 pixel for example. Okay, that's good enough. I will put width to it to 100%. Okay, it will take up the width of entire container, that's 210 pixel, right? Then I will put the background color. Let me color it a little bit. The color will be 26292E. Okay, I will remove that border, none, that's cool, and I will just put color white. So color inside that will be tight will be white. Okay, that's good enough for now. Let's move our stylings to buttons now. For the buttons, I will select every button on our page with a class of button basically. I will put the width to every of our buttons to be 50 pixels, a height also 50 pixels. Okay, that's cool. Let me give them some margin for 5 pixels to top, 5 pixels to right, 0 and 0 to bottom and left. That's okay. Now we can see that they are not in line with our viewer, so I will move a viewer. I will give it the margin on left side to 2 pixels, and that's better. So now let me continue with the buttons. I will put font size to 18 pixel as it is on our viewer. From here we wish to have that pointer cursor also on that. Background color will be same as for viewer. Okay, border will be obviously none. That's okay. Color will be white. Next thing, if I, for example, click on this, I have that outline that I don't really wish, so I will put outline 0. So now when I click on those, there are no any type of outline. So next part that I will do, I wish to have this 0 to take up 2 spaces, this one and this one, so the dot will come below 9 here. As we are using table markup here, you could use something different for the markup, for example normal div markup, or even to align these buttons with CSS grid, flexbox. That's on your own, right? But we are using here table, and we will use that advantage. For the 0, I will come to the 0 table data here, and I will put a call span of 2, right? So it will take up 2 spaces here, you can see. So now I can target that 0. If you remember, I put the 0 class on it. I will target that 0, and I will put the width to it of 100%, right? So it will take 100% of those 2 columns, but as you can see, it is too close to the dot. So I will do a function here. In CSS there is a function called calc for calculating. We will calculate 100% minus 5 pixel. The 5 pixel as our margin for every button on the right side is 5. Okay, so now everything looks fine, right? I also wish to this equal to take 2 spaces, 2 rows basically here. There is also a row span, so I will come to the table data for my equal sign, and I will put a row span to 5, for example, and you can see it is moved a little bit down, right? So now I can put height to it, so I will first grab my equal button, and I will put height 105 pixel, and there it is, right? We have that done now. There is whole markup with styles for our calculator. But now I wish to have this, for example, when I click on 5, I wish to have it like a button that is clickable, that is toggable basically. So I will put some shadow to every button. I will put a box shadow of 3 pixels to right tip, 3 pixels to bottom, and the shadow will be 666. Yes, there is a box shadow now, but it is still not toggable, obviously. So I will do the next thing. I will, on a button, on every button, activate property. I will do other styling. I will put a box shadow to be 0 pixels, 0 pixels. Yes, 666, so we don't lose that sign. So now when I click on it, it will lose the shadow, but it doesn't really look as it is clickable. So I will put a position to my buttons. Position will be relative, so I could put a button to all of my buttons to minus 3 pixels, and right also to minus 3 pixels. So now when I click on my button, you can see that it is clickable, as it is losing that shadow, and it is also moving the button 3 pixels next to the shadow, right? The 3 pixels that we added for the shadow will be removed, and we will move that button to 3 pixels inside of that shadow basically. So now I will also put a transition here. Transition will be all for 75 milliseconds. Easy in, out. So now we could have that a little bit better. So now we have our CSS done also. So we will move to our JavaScript, our main thing that we will work today, our logic for calculator. Okay, for JavaScript part, I will first open up my console here, so you could follow up with the logs that I will have inside. I will create my app.js file and I will import it in my HTML here. So now we can work with it. So what's the idea here? First of all, we will grab every button that we have here, and on every click of a button we wish to grab the value of that button. You remember that every of our buttons have the value property on it with the exact value. We will grab basically every button and we will get the value from that button. We will import that value inside of our viewer, and we will run different functions depending on which button we click by these three buttons here, right? So now I will work with the JavaScript file. I will divide my JavaScript file to three parts: elements, functions, and events. First of all, I wish to grab my viewer, so I could have it here. I will use const viewer, and I will get from document.query selector. I will grab my viewer by class of viewer. So now, for these buttons, you could obviously grab every button by class, for example, one by one, but there are like 18 buttons. We don't wish to have 18 lines of code just to grab the elements, so I will do this more programmatically. I will put a const to buttons and document.query, sorry, I didn't put equal here, query selector all. There is a query selector and there is query selector all. The query selector will select one element and query selector all will select all element with a given value. The value here will be class of button. If I log my console.log buttons that I have now, you can see that I'm getting the node list of 18 buttons, right? You can see there is every button here, right? This is a node list, this is not an array. It looks like an array, but this is not an array. If I open up this proto here, you will have some methods on this node list basically that we could run. If it was an array, we could run also the filter, map, every, and a bunch of other methods here. But there is one method that we wish to use here, that's for each method. For each method is basically a method that is similar to a for loop inside of a JavaScript. So I will use my buttons and use a method on it for each. For each method have this function, arrow function in it, that callback function, and we need to pass every button that we are looping through. So now if I console.log button that we are looping through, you could see there are 18 logs. Those are logs basically for every of our buttons. So if I log a button as an object inside of curly braces, I can see all of my buttons as an object. So if I open up this object here of my button, I will open up the button here. I will have all of this property on my button itself. So if I scroll down, there is a value 1 for the property value. So I will log now button that value. So now you can see that we have all the values for every of our buttons here. So now the idea is next. We will grab the event of click on every button. If the button 1, for example, is clicked, we will run some function. We will run function to use the value of that button and to insert it in our viewer. So I will have here a button and add event listener on it. The event listener will be click, and we will run a function here. The function that we will run, we will call it insert value, and we will pass to it button that value. This value will be a value of a button that is just clicked, right? So for the functions here, we will work on insert value function. So insert values inside of viewer. Let's create that function. Insert value is a function, an arrow function. It will, as we are passing the button value, it will get some value here, right? So if I console.log that value that is passed, now we can test it. If I click on plus sign, it will log the plus. If I click on 5, it will log the 5. If I click on 6, it will log the 6. So now, as I have also my viewer here, I can do something like this. I can grab my viewer and the value for the viewer. As you know that there is a value on the input field, right? And I will put equal to a value, the value that I'm getting from a button that is clicked. So now if I click on plus, you can see the plus sign here. If I click on 5, there is a 5. If I click on 4, there is a 4. But I don't really wish to click on 1 plus 2, there is no plus and there is no 1, we lost those values, right? So I don't wish to make a value equal to a value. I wish to add the value to the latest value that we have. So I will just put a plus sign here and that will do the magic, right? So now if I have 1 plus 2, there it is, right? Plus 3 minus 4, right? So also if I click on equal, it will add the equal sign in it. If I click on del and all clear, it will also add those values inside of this. So we don't wish to have that, right? So I must run some conditional logic here. The conditional logic will be if value is not equal to an equal and value is not equal to del and value is not equal to AC, then at that point we wish to add the latest value to our viewer, right? So now if I click on del, AC or equal, those 3 buttons won't add the value inside the viewer, but the rest of the buttons will add the value, right? So now if I have a 2 plus 3 and I click on equal, I wish to run the function to make that calculation, right? So I will grab my button first, const equal btn. We are using the same logic as for viewer. We will use query selector and we will grab the button by a class of equal. I will run a function on that button immediately. So equal button, I will add the event listener to it. When that button is clicked, it will run a function. The name of the function could be equal, right? So now let's create that function. There is an error here that the equal is not defined. We didn't define that function. We will just do it right now. We will work here for that function. So I will create a constant equal to a function, an arrow function of course. And how can we do our calculation here? So we will grab a viewer value that we have, and there is a eval method that is used by a JavaScript. Eval method expect to get that string value inside. The value that we have inside of our viewer, for example 2 plus 3, is a string value, so we will pass the right value to it. So I will pass a viewer value to it, right? And the eval method will basically do the calculation itself, so we don't really need to run that calculation on our own. So if I use now 2 plus 3 and I click on equal, it will do, the eval method will do that for us, right? Minus 3, right? Times 5, everything looks great, right? The next part of the code is all clear part, right? So if I click on all clear now, I wish to lose this 10 from my viewer. So let's do the same thing. We will first grab a button, clear btn, also the same method here. We will grab a button by clear. I will immediately run my function on it, add event listener. Listener is click, and function is clear. Let's call it clear. Okay, so here we will work on that function. Const clear is a function, a narrow function, and for this we wish to set viewer value. Well, we wish to set it basically to an empty string. So now there is unexpected undefined. Oh yeah, I typed here badly const. Now it's fine. Okay, so if I now we have, like, for example 2 plus 5, and we wish to all clear that. If I click on all clear, it will remove basically every value that is inside of our viewer. The only thing that we left to do is the delete function. So for example, if I have 2 plus 5 and I click on delete, I should remove that 5 from that viewer, right? Let's do the same thing. We will grab delete button with query selector, delete with the class of delete. We will run a function on it immediately. Delete btn, add event listener, click listener, and delete is value is a function, right? So we will create that function here, value, and this is hardest function here, as we need to use 2 lines of code, not 1 line. Yeah. So okay, so how we wish to do this? So for example, if I have 2 plus 5 here, and I wish to, by clicking on this button delete, to remove the 5 from a viewer, I must first grab the entire viewer value, and it is a string. And if you didn't know, string is an array of characters inside, so there is a length of 3 characters here. So it is not 1, 2, 3, it is 0, 1, 2. The arrays are counted from a 0, not from 1. So we must grab that value, the length basically of our string, the 3 length, and we must remove the last character inside. So I will first grab my viewer value here. I will create a let viewer value, and it will be equal to a viewer that value, obviously. And how I wish to do this now? I will grab a viewer that value, and I will set it to be a substring of a viewer value, right? So if I grab a viewer value that I just have here, and I use a method on it, substring, as it is a string, we can do this method on it. I wish my substring to start from a 0 and go all the way to a viewer value dot length. So if now that I have that length, I will just go -1 to remove the last character inside. So now let's test that out. 2 plus 5, click on delete. Yes, it will remove the latest character, right? 23 minus 5 equals 18, all clear, everything is done. Okay, down below you will have a Git repo for this calculator, and also online calculator on my portfolio website. This will be all for this video. If you liked it, please click like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.